Welcome to Budget Beauty, where I help you look flawless for less. Welcome back, and a very special welcome if you're new here. My name is Jen and this is Budget Beauty. We do everything beauty on a budget, and that includes testing out new eyeshadow palettes. I have ordered quite a few palettes, and today's palette you guys begged me to pick up and review here on my channel, and that is this Sweet Cravings palette from Tarte. This was just released a couple of weeks ago. I shared it in a new makeup releases, and it was an overwhelming, please pick it up and give us a review. So today we're going to do a full tutorial on this palette. I have all the rest of my makeup on with the exception of eye makeup, so we're going to put the Tarte Sweet Cravings palette to the test. So if you're excited, give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not, because I upload lots and lots of new videos every single week. I will link the palette down below for you, as well as all of the other makeup that I'm wearing in today's video, my favorite beauty boxes that I feel like are really a bang for your buck. And of course, don't forget, come on over, follow me on TikTok for a little bit more beauty on a budget. Let me zoom you on in and let's create a look with the Tarte Sweet Cravings palette. So as always, the first thing I'm going to do is prime my eyes with my MAC Paint Pot in Painterly. This is what I use every single day as my eyeshadow primer. It is my all-time favorite. I always like to just tap it in, just make sure there's no creasing before I start applying shadow. I'm going to go ahead and insert some swatches, the outside unicarton, a close-up of the Tarte Sweet Cravings palette. I think the packaging of this is really nice. It is a plastic packaging, but it feels really nice and weighted. It is gold on the backside. It shows all of the different shades in the palette. It is a 9-pan, very neutral palette, but it does have a little bit of a twist, which is what I like in neutral palettes. There are some really pretty berry-toned shades, and the shimmers in the pan look really beautiful. And when I swatched them out, they blew me away. They were very buttery. The mattes were very buttery. The shimmers were also very buttery and very sparkly, and they swatched beautifully. Both the mattes and shimmers actually swatched beautifully. I think the pan embossing is so cute. I like that there's hearts and it looks like a box of chocolates, which was what Tarte was going for. And again, for a neutral palette, I feel like there is at least some variety in here. There are several different types of neutral looks that you can create. There is a mirror in the palette, and this would be a fantastic everyday palette or a travel palette. So I am really excited to put this on my eyes. There are 5 shimmers and 4 matte. So I'm going to start with this shade up here. Let me see if it says on the back. Yes. So this is the shade Truffle. So all the shade names are on the back of the palette, and I'm going to pick that up on a fluffy brush, and that's going to be my transition shade. I'm going to just apply that to my crease, also a little bit above my crease, just as that more neutral transition shade for the look. It is very close to my skin tone. There is a tiny bit of a light pink undertone, which I actually really like. And it's going on nicely. I mean, light shades like this are hard to really give a solid review. It's when we get into those deeper shades that can crease and be patchy. That's when we'll really know what the quality is of this palette. But you guys know that I bought the Maneater palette from Tarte, and I love that palette. So if this is that same really good quality, we're in for a treat. So I have my transition shade on. Now I want to go into this little bit more pinky shade up in the corner called Drizzle. And using that same fluffy brush, I'm going to also put that into my crease just to deepen it up a little bit. Ooh, this is really pretty. This is a kind of salmony, pinky orange. Oh, I really like it. That was one swipe in. And look at that pigmentation and that color payoff. Pretty impressive. It's blending out really nicely. We are not patchy at all. And it's definitely pigmented, which is really nice because sometimes Tarte shadows can be pretty hit and miss. And I feel like for a neutral shade, this is actually really pretty and very pigmented. That's beautiful. I really like that shade, and it blended really nicely on top of the lighter shade Truffle. Now we have two deeper mattes in the palette. We have more of a brown leaning matte and then more of a berry leaning matte. I think I'm going to go with the brown leaning matte, and that is the shade, and that's this brown down here in the corner. Picking that up on a flat brush, I'm going to use that to deepen up the look and apply that right into my outer corner. Ooh, that is pretty. It looks very brown in the pan, but when you put it on, it does have a tiny bit of a purple vibe, which I really, really like, kind of a deep plum purple. It is layering nicely over those other two mattes. I did go into the palette a couple of times to pick up shadow, and it's laying down really nicely. It doesn't appear to be patchy at all. You know I love my colorful makeup, but I do love neutral as well. I've actually been wearing a lot more neutral, but I always say that I like neutral with a twist, whether it's different formulas of shimmers or different neutral shades of mattes, and this palette has that. I mean, like I said, there's browns, there's berry tones, there's some purple in here. This is the type of neutral palette that I like to reach for, and even the shimmers appear to have different formulas, so I'm really excited to try those out. So using that same fluffy brush that we used for the crease, I am just going to blend all of that out. I did not pick up any more shadow on my brush. I'm just using it to blend and diffuse the color. Now blending that out, I will say that I did lose a bit of the pigmentation in that deep shade. It kind of blended away a bit, not entirely, but a little bit. So I'm going to just tap back in just to deepen that up a little bit. I really like that depth in my eye look. I will say that these mattes are beautiful. They went on really nicely. We have no patchiness, and they layered and built up really well. I'm going to use my NYX glitter glue as a little bit of a primer for my shimmers. I do like to give my shimmers the best chance possible for not only application, but for wear throughout the day. And I really, really like the NYX glitter primer. For the price and being a drugstore glitter base for shimmers, it works really, really well. I do not set my glitter primer. A lot of people ask me that. I do not. And you know, if you follow my channel, that I like to go in with both my finger and a brush for shimmers just to test out how they apply. So first we're going to go in with my finger. It's so hard to pick the shimmer I want to use, but I think I'm going to go for this kind of coppery, looks like a bit of a duochrome shimmer in the bottom, and that's in the shade Ganache, which sounds delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that up on my finger. Like I said, the shimmers were beautiful and so, so buttery. And I'm going to focus that, the outer 2/3 of my lid. Now this is really pretty. Is it an indie shimmer? No. Is it super sparkly, super in your face shimmer? No, but it's pretty. And it does have that little bit of a shift from like a pink to a brown. I am going in with my finger into the shimmer shade Ganache twice to kind of build it up and layer it. It does build up really nicely. And then I want to use this pretty gold shade right here. This is the shade Rich. I'm going to pick that one up on a brush because, again, testing out the formula application with a brush and with my finger. And I'm going to focus that on the inner portion of my lid. And then I do like to just pull that in and blend that with that deeper shade Ganache. Now picking these shimmers up with a brush, they are very, very flaky, very wet feeling. So I'll show you the pan, and just pushing into them is putting quite a bit of an indent in the pan. They're a little bit of that more wet, flaky shimmer. I will also say that they are not applying as well with a brush as with a finger. I found that I got a little bit more payoff when I applied the shimmers with the finger. You can always spray your brush after you pick up your shimmer if you want to see if you can really build up the opacity. Can you see the pan, how it just really dipped out? It is just that really, really wet, flaky formula. So be careful with the shimmers because they do flake off. I mean, I had kind of a big chunk kind of flake off in the pan, which I don't mind those types of shimmers. I feel like you get a nice, good payoff with those. So this is pretty. I mean, like I said, it is not as spectacular as an indie shimmer. I'm an indie, independently owned makeup lover. I feel like their shimmers, you can't beat them. But for a mainstream brand like Tarte, they're nice. They're nice shimmers. They're not my favorite shimmers, but they're nice shimmers. The shade Champagne, I'm going to use as my inner corner highlight. So I'm going to pick that up on a brush as well. And I'm going to focus that right on the inner corner. Ooh, that's a pretty shade. Still that kind of same flaky, wet shimmer formula, but it is a little bit more of that pinky undertone, which pairs really nicely with the mattes I chose. That makes for a pretty inner corner highlight. It would actually make a really pretty all over the lid color as well. So for my lower lash line, I'm going to pick up Semi Sweet, which is that other deeper matte that we haven't tried, that little bit more plum berry toned matte. I like to try as many of the shades in the palette as possible, and I'm going to buff that on my lower lash line. Ooh, I really like that. I will say that looking at it, this shade, Semi Sweet, and my shade in my outer corner, they don't look that different on the eyes. Definitely this shade on my lower lash line, Semi Sweet, has a little bit more of a plum base to it. So either one of these would be really nice, deep outer corner shades. Again, depending on if you're going for a more brown base look or purple base look, but that is really pretty. I'm going back into that shade Drizzle, which we used in the crease, and I'm going to buff that over the top of Semi Sweet. And that's just going to diffuse it a little bit and blend it a little bit more. Back into that shimmer shade Ganache, the one that we put on the outer portion of our lid. I'm then going to buff that on my lower lash line because I love a little bit of a shimmer on a lower lash line. That's actually really pretty as well. And lastly, back into that shimmer shade up in the corner that we did for our inner corner highlight, the shade Champagne. I'm just going to pick that up one more time and just tap it into my inner corner again and bring it just a tiny bit under the lower lash line. And there is the finished look. I am going to go ahead and apply some liner, mascara, lashes, and I'll be back and we'll do our lips together. Okay, I have liner, lashes, mascara. I will link all of the makeup on my face down below for you so you know what liner, what mascara, what lashes that I used. Now I want to do our lips together, and I want to go with a nude chocolatey brown vibe because I think that's going to pair really nicely with this eye look. So I'm going to use the lip liner from Melt Cosmetics. This is in the shade Caffeine, and this is a little bit of a deeper, darker kind of cocoa brown. I do have a lip oil on right now, so actually let me wipe that off. Line my lips. And then from Unearthly Cosmetics, which makes one of my favorite satin matte lips. This is in the shade Delight. This was actually in their Valentine's Day mystery box. I did a whole video on their mystery box here on my channel. I'll link it down below for you. The formula of these is so good, so definitely grab some of these on the Unearthly site. They are so creamy and so delicious, and they dry down like a liquid lip, but they don't feel dry. They still feel very satiny, very luscious on the lips. I own every single one of their satin liquid lips. I love them. So that is the finished look. Let me go ahead and do my hair, get dressed for the day, and then I'll be back to share with you my final thoughts on the Sweet Cravings palette from Tarte. So here is the completed look. I have not gotten dressed yet. That's next, but I did go ahead and do my hair, and I want to share with you my thoughts on the Tarte Sweet Cravings palette. First of all, the pan embossing, the palette itself, the packaging, everything about it is really, really nice. The shimmers, again, are that wet, kind of flaky formula, so keep that in mind. In my opinion, those apply better with a finger than with a brush. I definitely was able to build them up, get the opacity, really get the true shimmer using my finger. But for a mainstream palette, and you guys know I'm an indie, independently owned brand lover, this is a nice palette. It's a neutral palette with a twist. I love that there are some brown shades, some orange shades, some berry shades. It is much more versatile than a lot of other neutral palettes out there. And because it is a smaller 9-pan palette, it's easy to store, and it is fantastic for travel. So would I recommend this palette? Yes. Am I happy I purchased it? Yes, I actually am, and I can see myself getting a lot of use out of this palette. Tarte has really upped their game. I was not interested in Tarte for about the last couple of years, and then I picked up the Maneater palette, and that kind of reignited my love for Tarte, my good feelings for Tarte. And now with this Sweet Cravings palette, I think that that Tarte will be on my radar moving forward. So I will make sure I link the palette down below for you. I just picked it up off of Ulta. I want to say it's about $32, so not bad for a 9-pan palette. And overall, I'm really happy I picked it up, and I really like my look, and I'm looking forward to wearing this to my girls' night with my boot camp group group tonight. We're going to Top Golf, so I'm going to get dressed up a little bit, and this palette is going to pair perfectly with my outfit. So again, highly recommend the Sweet Cravings palette, and it'll be linked down below for you. So hopefully you enjoyed today's tutorial review, first impressions of the Tarte Sweet Cravings palette. If you enjoyed it, give it a big thumbs up, and make sure you're subscribed and your bell's turned on, because I upload lots and lots of new videos every single week. Again, the palette will be linked down below, along with all of the other makeup that I'm wearing today. If you kind of wanted to recreate this look, my favorite beauty boxes, and don't forget, come join me on TikTok for a little bit more beauty on a budget. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.